Hello and welcome to my Detailing the White Way video series. In this episode you'll receive 3 tips and tricks from a professional detailer. Today we're looking at how to safely and efficiently clean and dress your vehicle's engine bay. My 3 Series BMW Touring. The vehicle is a daily runner. It's 2009, so getting on 10 years now, and it's done 104,000 miles. As much as I try to care for the vehicle, it is a daily runner, it lives outside. It's difficult to find the time to give it a special treat when I'm busy with customers' cars, a full diary, and a weekend toy of my own to look after and enjoy also. So it's well overdue some care and attention, specifically today in the engine bay. I'm going to take you through my engine bay detailing regime, listing the tools, the chemicals, the equipment needed, along with tips and a few trade secrets that I've picked up along the way. So the vehicle is my WhiteDetails workhorse. It gets very little attention, perhaps washed once a month if it's lucky. The engine compartment, I believe, was last tackled spring 2018. Going forward into the winter months, it's nice to now have a deep clean and protect before we go into the harsh conditions of winter, to then give it a once over again in spring, just so that it's not heavy and dirty now and getting heavier and dirtier between now and April, May time. So the 3 Series is 10 years old. Anything around this bracket, 10, 15 years old, is considered to be, on the most part, a modern engine. Modern engine which is sealed, it's weatherproofed. If you're gunning down the motorway at 70 miles an hour in treacherous rain, the engine compartment will be getting a good soaking. I'm quite lucky with the 3 Series. There's very little for me to do additional preparation with. There's the air intake is covered up. There's no exposed ECU. The battery is well out of sight. But if on your car or a customer's car you have a series of exposed electrics, the ECU, the alternator is certainly one that's worth covering up with a bag. Battery terminals, coil packs, the fuse box. Protect what you can with a bag, elastic bands, if not a drying towel, or avoid the area completely. I know on the top of an Audi RS4, for example, the 4.2 V8, the B7, the coil packs sit pretty much on the top of the rocker, and this is an area where I don't want to be pushing too much water around this, so that area I'll avoid because I've identified this as a potential risk, and I'll come back to it and tackle it later on by hand when the vehicle is indoors. At the end of the day, common sense prevails. You certainly can clean an engine bay without water, but it won't be anywhere near as good, and it's going to take you a lot of time and you'll lose a lot of skin off your knuckles. So we want to start with a cool engine. If the vehicle has just turned up, if you've been driving the car, it's hot, it's best to allow this to cool for a couple of hours. As I say, give a visual check, look around, see if there's any initial problems. One area of concern might be the sound deadening underneath the bonnet itself. If the vehicle is of a good age, it might be that this is a bit saggy, or it might be on its last legs. Introducing a ton of water, albeit an effective way, an efficient way of cleaning said material, is going to make it heavy. It might make it sag, it might make it droop and drop. So this may be worth avoiding. So we're now going to take a look at the kit and the chemicals. A selection of brushes, mitts, whatever you might have to make your life easier. A 1-inch detail brush, as seen on screen now, the Detail Factory brush, is a great place to start. Using perhaps a radiator brush alongside this 45-degree angle, it gives you better access and options. So underneath the hinge with the bonnet joins the wing and the scuttle, you can't get that 1-inch brush which is dead straight. You can't get into some areas. The radiator brush having the angle, in other aspects of detailing, not just the engine bay, it gives you better access that you haven't otherwise got with a normal brush. The EZ wheel brushes, these will come in handy for the low down, deep, hard to reach areas. Just be cautious though, if it is a particularly dirty, greasy, oily engine, that do you really want your nice wheel brush down there being contaminated to then later be used again on the wheels? Perhaps not. You're going to also want a series of old microfibre towels, something you're not too precious about. Chemicals, cleaners. First of all, the degreaser. Using an old faithful here, this is a trade product, it's AutoSmart G101. Diluted down somewhere between 1 to 4, 1 to 10. The degreaser is going to help to dwell and lift and absorb grease, some sticky areas, which will later need agitation. But also I find a tar remover to be quite useful, certainly on the underside of the engine bay, being tight and silver in colour of the vehicle. Tar deposits will creep through underneath the bonnet, and it's a great chemical for the greasy, built up tacky areas. And then lastly, an engine bay dressing of your choice. I will touch more on this later on. It's worth, before we get started with the water, to remove any sticks, any twigs, the leaves that are built up down in the drainage pockets either side, near side, off side of the BMW. There's a little tray down there. Remove that, get all the clutter, get it free of all the loose dirt. And then we want to work top down. So I'm going to start on the underside of the bonnet. I'm going to rinse the area, pre-rinse the area first of all. Again, working with caution for the sound deadening on the underside of the bonnet. With the degreaser set to work on the underside of the bonnet, using a couple of brushes to agitate and lift is required. A few hits of the tar remover were used at this point, certainly around the latch, and then one or two other grubby areas. All this before rinsing off with the pressure washer. Don't think I've touched on it yet, but certainly if you are using a pressure washer, great. Use it on a low setting, reduce the pressure, reduce the output, so it hasn't got the same forceful effect that perhaps you would want on the exterior of the vehicle. We just want it to be a mist, we want it to be a rinse aid as opposed to a blast aid. Revisiting the underside of the bonnet again now with TARDIS as a dedicated tar removal product. One or two visible tar deposits were located, an old microfibre towel, simply wiping away after a short dwell time before rinsing off. So paying attention now to the bulk of the engine, the main compartment. We've already removed the leaves and the loose material, the debris, but there's a lot of heavy dusting. The engine bay on this car is not particularly bad. There's no oil explosions or coolant leaks or anything like that. It's not too greasy. Just on the most part, it's surface debris. We can actually remove a lot of this with the rinse itself, the pre-rinse, before we go on to apply the degreaser to the engine, focusing on pockets and corners and ledges. I wouldn't actually recommend hitting the block of the engine for periods of time particularly, but if on the side of the air vent paneling you'll see there's a little small bracket and it's all built up and it's gunked up and the detailing brush won't get in there, the water, the action of the water is going to help. With the heavy dirt removed now, we're going to soak the engine compartment with your degreaser of choice. Being mindful again to keep the adjacent panels, the wings, the bumper wet. Keep them well rinsed. Allowing the product to dwell 30, 60, 90 seconds before we start agitating the product and the surfaces of the engine compartment with various brushes. With a final rinse now, on the most part, the engine looks great. Okay, it's wet and it's hard to actually see what we're dealing with here, but the majority of the dirt, the majority of the dust, the loose material, we're all good. Oh, vehicle's indoors now, and I'm sure you'll agree, it's looking 10 times better than it was already. There will be times when water isn't used as much as this in the wash process, something like one of the 90s or the 70s or the 80s Vantage Aston Martins that come through. Yes, there is a lot more potential danger there of water ingress and threat against electrics in the ignition and sort of the plugs. The perimeter of the engine bay may be done with the mist from the pressure washer, but otherwise it's indoors and it's done by hand, which may be another video for you. But now that is the hard work done, and this is where the magic happens. It is drying down and dressing. Yes, you can spend time toweling it down with a microfibre or a drying towel or so. You'll be there a while, and yes, you could go for a drive to generate even more heat, and eventually it will evaporate. But I like to cheat a little here. If you're a returning viewer to the vlog, you will have perhaps seen me or even heard me say about this trick in the past. First of all, we're going to dry it down with the vehicle blower. This is a turbine, it's a wind, it's a powerful push to eliminate all the trapped water drips and remaining crevices full of pooling water. And then after that, we're going to use the dressing, which we'll touch on in a second, to leave it looking like new and protected for the rubbers, the plastics and the hoses. Right, I need some headphones. With all surfaces of the bay now bone dry, we get to the dressing stage. The product I keep talking about is actually Autolim Vinyl and Rubber Care, also known as Super Sheen, which is the trade version. Restores and protects automotive plastic and rubber. Forms a tough but flexible anti-static barrier against moisture, dust, oxidation, staining and fading. Another reason that I reach for this product is its water-based viscosity. It's quite thin. Similar to the drying stage, yes, you can go ahead with a towel, a microfibre and pat and wipe and dry it by hand, but it's going to take some time and it's not very efficient. Using the blower, as you've seen, for the drying is a much more effective, efficient way. Same applies for the application of the products and the dressing. I remember back in the day of my first cars, I used to be applying engine dressings and back to black on the plastics all by hand. With the complexity of some of the shapes and the ledges and the braiding on hoses and intricate spots which you can't get a finger into, you end up chasing your tail and it's very difficult to get a nice even application this way round. So rather than struggle on by hand, again the vehicle blower comes out to play. Covering the engine compartment with the product, making sure not to purposely spray it onto any belts. By using the vehicle blower, you're able to blow it into these tight areas, these tight spots, and get a uniform finish that otherwise you're never going to be able to by hand. It may take some time, it may make a bit of mess on the adjacent panels, a bit of splatter, but the overall finish, in my opinion, is definitely worth it. During my white detail service, the engine dressing at this stage is always done before the paint refinement. If the paint is perfect, it's flawless, then we go on to dress the engine bay. We're making a bit of a mess, 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot around the perimeter of the bay. So that includes the paint, the bumper, the headlights, the glass, the trim, which if we've already finalized, it's all backwards. Doing it at this stage before we're refining, so after cutting, we need to wipe down the whole surface of the car, eliminate the dust. The paint is rough still anyway, yet to be brought back to life with the refining. perfect timing to introduce this stage. You may still want to wipe down some excess product in the engine once you have finished blowing. Another trick actually is to, rather than struggle on with a full-sized 16 by 16 microfibre towel, which is big, it's clumpy, quarter it, cut it into half again. You've got a nice, controllable, manageable microfibre section which you can easily manoeuvre. And at the same time, maybe introduce tools, accessories, so a wooden skewer or a long-handled plastic brush that you can help the microfibre reach further down in places that, again, your fingers can't. But otherwise, leave it, it will dry. It's a non-sticky, greasy, shiny, tacky product. And it also helps at this stage to stick on a head torch just so you can actually see what you're doing down there. So there we are, nice and straightforward, nothing too complicated, certainly on this engine bay anyway. I'll leave you with a collage of after footage of this and other engine bays that have been completed here in the last 12 months, 24 months or so. Some of which, yes, did require a lot more work. I remember on some of the Vantages, the old Vantages, they left me bent over the engine bay for maybe 5 hours, chasing grease and oil in the intricate spots and really, albeit a much bigger job on the models. This is a very brief sort of once over. Start to finish on this, if I was to not be messing about with the cameras and the mic all the time, maybe start to finish half an hour, 35 minutes for this job. Just now need to find the time to decontaminate the exterior of the car, sort the wheels, lay down some winter protection on the paintwork. And I'm sure by the time spring comes around, the engine bay will be lathered and caked up again. At least now it's not going to be heavy already, going into winter to come out even heavier the other side in spring. So I hope that was of some use to some of you. Remember, if you're a new visitor here, if you haven't been here before, remember to hit subscribe for more future videos and content to come. Also dig back through the archives if you haven't seen already. This how-to tutorial style video is new. My go-to is maybe a 30-minute, 40-minute, 50-minute episode on a special job when it's my full white detail booking, where I document the full transformation from point A to point B. Don't forget, all of the kit, chemicals and tools have been listed in the video description down below for your convenience. If you have any suggestions or questions or comments or things you'd like to see in the future Detailing the White Way video episode, leave a comment down below underneath the video. So thanks for watching. See you again soon for another Detailing the White Way video upload.